Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. I always disliked people who changed the rules while they were playing, or at least tried to change them, because I always intervened as much as I could, or quit the game, because I'm not going to allow someone else to make new rules while the game is playing. We can make new rules after the game is over, and we can all agree that they will apply to all of us. But I've seen this many times playing games with others, where you get someone who is losing and is a sour loser and will try to change the game's rules only for that particular moment when he or she is about to win. After that happens, someone else cannot take advantage of the rule that was agreed upon 5 minutes before by that guy or that person. So I always disliked that. Or simply, you make the rules, but you don't follow them. You violate them, but you expect everybody else to follow them 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. That's very, very unjust. And this is occurring on this planet where they say we have an international law, we have a rule-based world order, but there are some countries, a few countries, not too many, that can do whatever they want really, without really negative consequences. And you know those countries. Now I have here an article where we have the Poles in Poland being threatened or feeling threatened by the Wagnerites being present in Belarus. Now Poland and Belarus, they share a border, a western border for the Belarus, the eastern border for the Poles, for Poland. And as you know, the Wagnerites were kicked out of Russia by Putin. They ended up with the agreement with Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, they ended up in Belarus, and they're supposed to be training right by the border with Poland, but on the territory of Belarus. Now the Poles are very scared about it, not scared, concerned about it, and they deploy troops over there, or at least some policemen, something. They beef up their little defenses, thinking that those guys will, no, it's not right. They think it's not okay. Well, I have here two articles. One article that will talk about this, and the other one explaining what indivisible security is. All right, that's very important, because this indivisible security is applicable only when some countries claim it, but when the other countries are claiming it, it's ignored. These countries that I'm talking, the first group is, like right now, would be probably Poland or United States or anybody else on that side, and should not be applied to Russia, for instance. And remember, one of the reasons the Russians invaded, what's that word? Unprovoked, they invaded Ukraine, is because they say the indivisible security principle was violated. All right, I will explain what that is if you're not familiar with that. But let's go first to the article here and see how these guys at Reuters, I think they mock the Poles. And that's a very personal insult, I would say. I'm not a Pole, but I'm coming from a country where articles like this were made, and I was looking, why do you guys post this kind of pictures? And these pictures will be viewed by your American readers. They will have a wrong assessment of what Poland or Romania is, or the societies over there. And they will say, oh, those are a bunch of peasants, somewhere in the, 15th century. Back there somewhere. Let me show you. So this article comes from Reuters. Fears in Poland's east as Wagner Group trains across the border. Why fears? Why are you scared, homie? All right, and here is the picture. Now look at this picture. This is a Polish woman, because all Poles look like that. With this, that's whatever going in the basement, probably a sheet or some back there somewhere in the back of that. This is a whale from the 12th century. Okay, all right, this is, look at this metal bard, look at her, okay? She's not the best looking person, okay? Let's put it this way. They couldn't, let's say, portray a Polish woman, for instance, from Krakow or somewhere from a city driving a BMW or a Mercedes. No. They used this one. Now, many times in my life, when I used to live in that country, Romania, we had this kind of peasants over there. But we also had citizens in the village. It's like, for instance, I want to write an article about the United States of America, and I go into a trailer camp, or trailer, however you want to call it, because some other words come next to trailer. Starts with T, but I can't, to a trailer park, that's how it's called. And I go over there at the lowest of the lowest, or I'm just going, let's say, to a farm, a very poor farm in the United States of America, and I just take a picture, snap a few pictures over there. Will not show differently than that one, including the people inhabiting that. I can provide you tomorrow with 100 pictures in an hour if I go to a trailer park, or if I go wherever I know I should go in a certain kind of neighborhoods. But I don't do that. These guys continuously portrayed, when I used to live in Romania like that. They would get someone without, an old lady with a little something on, I don't know how you call, a scarf over her head, hunchback without teeth. I was like, that's the Romanian that you guys are gonna put on CNN when you broadcast it in the United States of America. And the Americans will feel, even the Americans in the trailer park will feel. And then when you come here, they look at you like, that's how you are. Hello, my friend, how are you? Well, and then you say, hey, how about we talk about, I don't know, Nietzsche. Who that? Well, you don't know shit, actually. They're very surprised when you tell them, then you have books over there, you have phones? Why? Because that's one of the images they see. I had to say this, and I'm very sour about it, as you can tell. So, here is a woman, and it says is village head, she's a boss. Agata Moroz stands in front of her house in Kolpin Ogrodniki, Poland. This is her. Look at this, unfinished is unbelievable. This is insulting. I protest in the name of the Poles. So, Poland. People living near Poland's border with Belarus said on Thursday they could hear shooting and helicopters after Russia's Wagner group arrived to train Belarusian special forces just a few miles from the frontier, compounding their fears that Ukraine war would reach them. Now we could talk about Agata, and she said, I'm afraid. I have a son in the army. He's a military man. I'm worried about him. I have grandchildren. I have a disabled husband. I'm pretty sure that's not the word she used. I'm most worried about them, Moroz said. Everyone, because they're not politically correct in that way, I guarantee you that. Everyone says, she wouldn't use the R word either, because it's her husband after all, right? But then she would use a different one. Everyone, I would assume, okay, I have no evidence, says that something will happen, that something will definitely happen, she added. Okay, well, I hope not. Yevgeny Prigozhin, boom. Minsk posted pictures of Wagner instructors, okay. And he says, we can hear helicopters flying there. Where they go, when they go, all the windows are shaking, said Adam Ligor, a 45-year-old farmer on Moroz's neighbor. So this is it. Now, look here. Poland, a former Warsaw Pact member, which has been a fully member of the US-led NATO military alliance since 1999, began moving over 1,000 troops to the east of the country earlier this month, even before these guys moved over there, amid rising concern that Wagner fighters in Belarus could lead to increased tension on its border. Opa, doesn't make sense here. So Poland, alright, it says here that they began moving over 1,000 troops to the east of the country earlier this month, amid rising concern that Wagner fighters. So why are you concerned, homie? On Thursday, the Polish defense minister said in an email statement that it was monitoring the situation on the border with Belarus as is prepared for various scenarios. Okay, so they are concerned they moved troops over there. Now, let's go back in time. Do you remember when the Russians told the Ukrainians and NATO member states, you're militarizing Ukraine, you bring military infrastructure over there, you bring weapons, you train those guys, we're gonna do something about it. Stop and implement now the Minsk agreements that you signed, 1 and 2. The Ukrainians said, What did the Russians do? They did what the Poles did. They brought what? Not 1,000 troops. They brought 100,000 troops. What were the other guys saying? An escalation. Now, do the Poles escalate anything? I mean, using the same, at a different scale. But the principle is the same. They are concerned with those guys being around. You say, well, they brought the Wagnerites. So did NATO troops. Not troops, military and weapons were in Ukraine. That's an escalation. The Russians brought their troops over there. Oh my God, Putin, take your troops away. I'm not defending them. I'm just saying how these weasels look at this one as a normal thing, but the other one was not a normal thing. Now, anything can happen here. Now, let's go to what that indivisible security means. So, I have an article from Financial Times. Here it is. And in Financial Times, right here, it tells us that, I'm just going to go here, the concept broadly states that the security of any state is inseparable from others in its region. So that means if, let's say, Poland gets, 100,000 NATO troops over there and military personnel, Belarus security is threatened. Or if NATO brings weapons and so-called advisors and so on in Ukraine, Russia could feel threatened. But hey, Russia did not have that right. These guys have it. And let's go back here and see how the idea was born. First crafted during the Cold War, the term indivisibility of security in Europe was included in the Helsinki Final Act of 1975, which set ground rules for the interaction between two antagonistic blocs, the Western Alliance of NATO and the Warsaw Pact, made up of Soviet Union and some of its satellite states. But the dissolution of the Soviet Union changed things, with former Soviet satellites feeling free to choose their own security arrangements. Correct, but they didn't cancel that, hence Helsinki. It didn't cancel, it just canceled the names, the two blocks. Now, in 1990, Charter of Paris of New Europe stated that, and I'm quoting, security is indivisible, and the security of every participant state is inseparably linked to that of all the others, end quote. And then Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe summits in Istanbul in 1999 and Astana in 2010 repeated the importance of this concept, with the rider that this could not come at, and I'm quoting, the expense of another state's security. But both summits also reiterated that no state or group of states can consider any part of the OSCE area as its spheres of influence. Perfect. All right. So this is an explanation on what's over there. The Poles, for good reason, should be concerned. The Ukrainians should be concerned. The Belarusians should be concerned. They're all concerned. And what do? They arm themselves, including the Russians. When the Russians saw NATO coming closer, the same thing. You come closer, buddy. That's a security concern. Well, what was the answer from NATO? Don't worry, these guys can join NATO because they're free countries. And Russia says, yeah, but you remember that principle? You asked me not to feel threatened? Yeah, that's exactly what we ask you. And now you can see what's going on in Ukraine, which is NATO is fighting those guys over there with the Ukrainian people. In the middle. The Ukrainian people are sponsored with all those weapons, with the satellites, with the communication, with the intelligence. Actually, it's these guys against those guys. So those guys, you can argue that they had a good reason to feel threatened, because look where they got. If they would have a possibility, let's say, to stop them right there in East Berlin, there would have been a different story. But hey, they said, okay, let's do that. Okay, but if we do this and Germany will be unified, then no inch, NATO inch moving east. Promise. And that's what happened. Thank you. You can consider it however you want. I'm not saying this is a slam dunk argument. I'm just pointing out how certain things are just let to slide, and some things are not. And I apply certain rules when I need to, hey, that's a rule over there, But when the other guy say, hey, it's a rule, what do you want? Mind your own business. Now, I don't like that a bit. That's why I made this video. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth and be just. And also for that picture over there, with whatever her name is, Agata. Again, that brought me flashbacks, okay, from the past. And I'm pretty sure, I'm 100% that the Poles will mind having that on Reuters published. Like, really? I mean, you can pick up something else. Like I can pick up whatever I want from, even if, okay, Washington, D.C. Oh, have you been to Washington, D.C.? I've been a few times, and I've been through some neighborhoods. Whew! Okay, oh, next time I'm not gonna, in Washington, D.C., this happened, and take a picture of the Capitol. No. Take a picture of that neighborhood. Would you like that? I remember that was done by the Serbs, I think, at one point. And these guys, was the Serbs, who the hell did it? It was a documentary. It was a documentary made with America. But one of, not the Serbs, it was one Arab country. I can't even remember which one it was. And these guys got all upset that, oh, that's a wrong, not unfair representation of our society. Really? It's just reality, but they choose in that documentary to pick exact parts of America that don't look too good. All right? It's reality, but they choose to pick that. Like these guys choose to pick her for this article because she was in a village by the border. Yeah, I don't believe it. Let's say I have a chip on my shoulder when I see this kind of pictures. Thank you very much for being with me again today. See you next time.